Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm bringing you my TBR for the second half of August, which is also my TBR for the History Challenge. So the History Challenge is a readathon that I'm co-hosting that is focusing on non-fiction history books, and like I said, it's running from the 17th to the 30th of August. And I will link the official announcement video down below, as well as my wonderful co-hosts, which is Jenny from Book of Shenanigans, Justin from Triumphal Reads, and Justin from Ghost Reader. There are 16 different prompts for the History Challenge, which are in a bingo board. These are all entirely optional, and the idea is that each book can fulfill multiple prompts. The only actual official prompt is to read one non-fiction history book throughout the entire 2 weeks, which I'm definitely going to hit. And my intention is to attempt to hit actually all the prompts through obviously less than 16 books by doubling up on some of them. So I'm going to talk about the books today. I have an absurd TBR that I am definitely not going to actually read all of them, but I really enjoy overly ambitious TBRs that give me a lot of kind of freedom for what I would like to pick, and these are all books that I really wanted to kind of shine a spotlight on for you as well, for the kind of the History Challenge, in case you did want to pick them up yourself. So with that all being said, let's jump in and talk about books. The first book I'm keen for is Black Tudors by Miranda Kaufman. As the title suggests, this is the untold story of black people in Tudor times, and I think it's focused on 10 particular individuals and looking at their kind of life story, and in doing so it's going to function as a wonderful social history of the Tudor period. Now for me, this is going to fulfill the prompt of local, because it is set in Britain, obviously with the Tudors. It's a female author, and it's also going to be revisiting a school topic. I learned a lot about the Tudors when I was at school, but it was primarily just doing Henry VIII and his 6 wives over and over and over again, so I really appreciate more of a like grassroots, the kind of actual the people of the time period. The next book I have to mention is Juggling, From Antiquity to the Middle Ages, The Forgotten History of Throwing and Catching by Thom. This is a micro history, it's also quite short, and as the title suggests, it's about juggling and the history of juggling. So it's going to function for both micro history and also for ancient history, because it is talking about antiquity. I've met Thom, he's a really cool gentleman juggler, and he does a lot of work kind of writing about the history of juggling. I've been to a few of his lectures and met him at various juggling conventions, and this looks really exciting and interesting. I used to be a circus performer and instructor, for those of you who don't know, so this is going to be a really lovely like personal look at something that I used to be very heavily involved with. The next book I have to talk about is Gentleman Jack, a biography of Anne Lister by Angela Steidele, and this has been translated by Katie Derbyshire. Anne Lister was a woman in the, I believe, Victorian era, and she had kind of a persona which was Gentleman Jack, and she also, her journals after she died were discovered, and she had a lesbian love affair which was very scandalous at the time. So this is a biography of her, but also a look at her journals. So it's going to fulfill the prompt of local again, because it is British history. It is also naturally a woman author, and it's also a memoir and a social issue, because it's going to be talking about a particular person within the history of the LGBT community. I'm really excited about this one. I've heard very good things, and I really want to know more about her because of the fact that there was a BBC miniseries made about her, so I think this could be exciting. Branching off now into a bit of art history, I also have In Monteparnasses by Sue Rowe. This is the emergence of surrealism in Paris from Duchamp to Dali, and this, as again the subtitle suggests, is looking specifically at the surrealist movement within Paris, which is a movement of modern art in the 20th century. I love modern art. I find it really fascinating to read about, and whilst my kind of general knowledge of the different movements is kind of okay, I don't actually know how crazy about surrealism in particular, so I'm really intrigued by this book. Also, Sue Rowe has quite a few books on art history, so if I like her writing style, it's a real like excellent. I know I can go to her to read more on this. So In Monteparnasses is a contemporary, because it is talking about modern art in the 20th century. It is also a woman author. I have many women authors on this list, and it is also a book that is not set in my country, because this is in France. Okay, the next one I have to talk about is Europe by Tim Flannery. This is the first 100 billion years of Europe. This is a prehistory that is looking at ancient Europe and prehistoric Europe, and just sort of the various movements and kind of what we can know about it. I love prehistory, as we all know on this channel, and I've been very good at like trying to branch out from just reading about dinosaurs, so I think that this one is going to be really, really interesting. I also think the cover is stunning. So this one fulfills the prompt of favourite time period, because it is going to be talking about prehistoric, which is my all-time favourite thing. You guys know that on this channel so much. It is also a macro look at, obviously, Europe as a big whole, so it's going to tick off the prompt for macro history, multidisciplinary, and it's also ancient, or even actually before ancient, if you want to consider ancient, like Romans and things like that. So I think this is going to be a good, almost like comfort read. I'm fairly confident I'm going to enjoy this one. Okay, and again, branching off of the continent now, we're going to be talking about Wayward Lives and Beautiful Experiments by Sadiya Hartman. This is a social history that is looking at the black queer community, especially for women in America in the turn of the century, I believe. It's really functioning as a social history. I might be buddy reading this with Natalie from Curious Reader. We haven't worked out the logistics yet, but I know she's really keen to read this sometime soon. I think it's going to be really exciting and interesting. So this is going to fulfill a ridiculous number of prompts, but we're going to try and rattle through them. It's both a different country and a different continent. It's a social history. It's also got a black author, and it is there was another one. It's a woman author, and I'm sure it could probably fit into a few more. I'm really trying to make a lot of these books work hard for me about crossing over as many different topics as I can. Now we're starting to get into the one where I'm like, I really don't know if I'm going to get a chance to get around to these, but I like to have options, and which ones I want to prioritise and which ones I'm more excited about really varies day to day, so we're going to chuck in a bunch more anyway, just to kind of see. I will have some historical fiction towards the end, don't worry, it's not just non-fiction, but I'll cover those at the end once I've done all the non-fiction books. I now have Pathfinders by Al-Khalili. This is the golden age of Arabic science, and again, as subtitle suggests, it's looking specifically at advancements in Arabic science historically, how Arabic cultures have contributed to science in a world where we very much focus on the Western contributions. I think this is going to be super interesting. I love history of ideas, history of science, and I think it covers some history of mathematics as well, which I think is going to be absolutely amazing. So we're very keen on this. It is going to be ticking off ancient, plus also different country, different continent. I think that's it. I'm not too sure. I'm certain. Oh, macro. One that has been on my TBR shelf for far too long, and I really need to get around to it sometime soon, but it's scary and big, is the Romanovs by Simon Serbag Montifiore. This is, as the, again, title suggests, I like it. Non-fiction really sort of tells you what it's doing in the title. This is a look at the entire Romanov line, which was the royalty in Russia for a very, very long time. It's big, it's chunky. I've had it on my shelf for I think about 2 years now, and it's been on so many TBRs, and I've been really intimidated by it, so I keep putting it off and putting it off. But I now have 3 big chunky books about Russian history on my shelf, and I've not read any of them, so this is the one that's been there for the longest. This is the one we're going to prioritise. My goal is to start it in the readathon. I think if I kind of just decide I'm just going to start it, I'm not going to attempt to finish it, and then that way it might be less intimidating and it can drift over into September as much as I want. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be really good. I've heard good things. Very expansive look, but scary. And then we have a recent addition to my shelves, which you'll have seen in my last haul, A Lab of One's Own by Patricia Fara. This is science and suffrage in the First World War. So again, like the subtitle suggests, it's looking at the advancements in women's rights and also within the scientific field in the First World War. I think it's going to be really interesting. I've been getting super into like the social implications of what happens around a war off the back of some other stuff I've been reading recently, so this one really leapt out to me. Looks like it's gonna be very cool. It ticks off a bunch of things. I've kind of stopped telling you what they tick off, but I think I've kind of hit nearly everything on the list, so I'm excited for this one. I think it's gonna be fun. So I have Roaring Girls, The Forgotten Feminists of British History by Kyte. This I have on audiobook that I am keen to try and get around to at some point. It's about 9 women who have been kind of suppressed by history. I don't know which women they are, but I will find out, and I think it's going to be good fun. And then the final non-fiction I'm really keen on is Victorians Undone, Tales of the Flesh in the Age of Decorum by Kathryn Hughes. This is actually going to fulfill the prompt of a host's favourite book, because this was recommended to me by Jenny from Bookish Shenanigans when we buddy read Queen Victoria together, and she was saying this was probably one of her favourite books on Victorian history, and it looks at particular examples of various people's body parts, which I know sounds really strange, but it's kind of zooming in on like Queen Victoria's smile or lack thereof, and like Charles Darwin's beard, and like I don't actually know which ones they are, but it's the idea is really kind of focusing in and using those as a jumping off point to talk about whatever was happening in the Victorian era. I think it's gonna be really good fun, and I needed one for for host favourite book, and you know, Jenny recommended it directly to me, so I thought that would be really fitting. So I now have four historical fictions that I'm excited to try and get to as well. I think I'm actually more likely to get to nearly all of these, even though I've got such ridiculous TBR, because I do find fiction a lot quicker and easier to read, especially historical. I do tend to blitz it a bit. One that is super high priority for me is Half-Blood Blues by S.E. Edugyan. This is the author of Washington Black, but this is her first novel, I believe, or at least one of her earlier ones, and this is about a gentleman who, it's in Paris in 1940s, in the aftermath of the fall of Paris, and he is a jazz musician, but he gets kind of dragged off and never to be seen again, and it is about the history, and then 50 years later somebody trying to find out about him, I believe. I really enjoy.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Go away, Siri.
Okay.
I feel bad now. I really enjoy books where the historical fiction, there is like a modern day conversation looking back and trying to find out more information about them. So I think this is going to be really, really, really good. Ticks off a bunch of prompts. I've given up on what prompts things have ticked off. One that's been on my TBR for, again, a really, really long time is The Book of Fires by Jane Borodale. This is set in the 1750s, and it is a young woman who is an assistant to a firework maker, but then she becomes pregnant by him, and it's super, super scandalous, and it's what's going to basically happen to her. So I think this would be good fun. I'm getting slightly gothic-y vibes. I'm intrigued by the fact that she's the assistant to somebody who makes fireworks. I would love to know how they made fireworks in the 1750s. So I think this is going to be fun and interesting. And then again, another high priority one is Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This is for the prompt of myth or folklore, and it is a fantasy historical fiction that looks at the Mexican god of death, I believe, and a woman's run-in with him, I think. I'm actually reading her other book, Mexican Gothic, at the first half of the month for the Goth Lit Book Club, so it looks like I'm just inadvertently binging this author, so I really hope I like her. But I did need one for the prompt of myth/folklore, and I didn't have one at that point. And then the final one that I will get to if I finish the other audiobook that I have going on is The Autumn Throne by Elizabeth Chadwick. This is the final book in her trilogy about Eleanor of Aquitaine. I listened to book 2 only about a week or two ago now, and I'm really, really psyched to try and finish the series. I deeply enjoy the audiobooks for these, so that will be towards the end of the month when my new credit comes in with Audible, and it's looking at the final half of her life, specifically with her son Richard the Lionheart and everything that he did for the Crusades, and kind of a key figure in British history. So I think that'll be really interesting to see how it all wraps up in the end. It's historical fiction that is heavily relying on kind of fact. It's almost like a narrative biography, but it's kind of dramatizing what actually happened in her life. So I really enjoy it. I think it's fantastic. So that is it from me. I don't even know how many books that is. I think we're on something like 14 or 15. I'm not going to read a book a day, so I'm not going to get to all of these, but that's okay. I wanted as much range and choice and options as I could, and this still leaves like a solid 15 or 16 history books unread on my shelf that equally could have been on this TBR. So don't be surprised if there isn't a total random one in the wrap up where you're like, Emmy, you didn't mention that in the 15 options you gave yourself. Like, I might go off piece, you know me. It's a bit of a mood reading time. So let me know in the comments down below where you think I should start with these, and if there's anything you're particularly excited about. Also, if you have your TBR, please do link it down below. I've been trying to watch as many people's as I can, but it can be a little bit difficult to find them sometimes in the search functions, so leave them all linked down below. If you know of another channel who's done them, leave theirs linked down below. I really want to watch as many people's as I can. So yeah, that's it. Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.